This video is one that's probably going to really hurt a lot of the PlayStation crowd and some of the Xbox fans as well. Not intentionally, but it's just because I'm recording it and I just want to kind of get the word out there that, hey, you know what? Crapgamer was right. This is the truth of the matter. Like it or not, like whether or not we like this or not, this is just a fact of life. We've got multiple developers talking about single-player games, right? And this is what you guys know who Remedy Games are. They did Quantum Break, obviously, Alan Wake. They're working on new stuff. This is what they had to say, and of course I will link this article so you guys can read it as well. The reality is the traditional AAA single-player experience is just really expensive to make. The expectation level from gamers is really high in terms of how long the game is, what sort of features it has, how good the production values are. All those things are very expensive to do. And if you look back 10 years, you could still say the console market is roughly the same size. In the end, the audience you're selling to is relatively the same size, but the cost of making the game is tenfold these days. So that's an obvious problem. From a creative perspective, even when we made Alan Wake, it was like we spent all this time creating the characters, the universe, the rules, and everything. It's a place where you want to spend a long period of time, and that's hard to do in a traditional single-player space. So he reiterated that one-and-done type of game also frustrates developers from a creative standpoint, as consumers tend to play those games very quickly after the creatives have spent years of their lives conceiving the fictional world. So he's very right in this aspect, right? They spend years and years to create these single-player games, these vast single-player games, right? And we play them, we get done with them in, however long it takes, 10, 15, 20 hours, and then we're done. We don't really go back to them. And if we do, maybe once. So, I mean, there is that aspect of it where people are like, we need more single-player, we need more single-player. But that's not the most damning one in terms of what's going on, right? So I will link this other article as well from Polygon. Amy Hennig, you guys know her. She wrote some of the Uncharted games. She was part of Visceral's team. They had that canceled Star Wars game. She said, I think we're in an inflection point right now. Obviously, what happened with our Star Wars project didn't come out of the blue. A lot of too dramatic articles were written about it, the death of linear stories, games, and all that kind of stuff. But look, there is a real problem. This line we've been running up to for a lot of years, which is the rising cost of development and the desires and demands even of players in terms of hours of gameplay fidelity, production value, additional modes, all these things. Those pressures end up very real internally. If it costs you, say, $100 million or more to make a game, how are you making that money back and making a profit? And the $60 price point can't change, right? There's a lot of negative press around monetization, loot boxes, games as service, etc. But these things are trending now in the industry, especially for larger publishers, as an answer to the problem of rising development costs. Budgets keep going up, and the bar keeps getting raised, and it starts to make less and less sense to make these types of games. There's also this trend now that as much as people protest and say, why are you canceling a linear story-based game? This is the kind of game we want. People aren't necessarily buying those games. They're watching somebody else play them online, and that's a fact too. So even though people keep complaining and saying they want all these single-player games and they're great, we've saw that even Horizon Zero Dawn, as quote-unquote successful as that game was, when you have 75 million consoles out there and you only saw 4 million in the year, that's not incredibly good to me. That's not probably, is that even making them a profit? I don't know. Now, what it is doing is giving them goodwill towards gamers, and it's going to make people buy their platform and play it because they're like, hey, if I want these experience, I can go with Sony. So it's making Sony money in that way. But in terms of the game itself, I doubt that it really made Sony any money. And we're seeing that this is why we're getting loot crates and all this kind of stuff in our game nowadays. And I know that's disappointing and heartbreaking to some of you guys. But at the same time, I feel like this is a video that had to be done. I'm not saying I'm happy about this because I think that we will still get single-player games. And I think Microsoft will give us single-player games. But when you look at, say, Horizon Zero Dawn and at 4 million, and then you see PUBG at over 4 million in like less than a month, you start to see where Microsoft and some of these other people's heads are at and why they're like that, right? People will keep playing and investing and paying online fees to get to play those games online. So it's really our own fault. If we were actually actively buying these games, the single-player games, and playing through them, and like we claim we do, not just a vocal minority, we'd probably get more. So very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe. Check out these articles. 2 separate interviews say the same thing. Very interesting. Big time developers. Thanks for watching. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.